in a specific situation. You know, someone who goes up and says, you know, I'm an ed plan, I'm trying to get out here and want to do this, but I can't. And maybe a similar story, you know, I'm a faculty member, I teach so and so many students. The personal stories really get through, and the local interests very interest legislators, I think, more than big picture as much, although that should be a part of it. So I think it should kind of be a meld of the two, if that makes sense.
Well, my concern would be, you know, you're right about personal stories, but it's not just happening at PCC, it's happening throughout the other 112 colleges. And that's what you have to get through, is that you not only heard PCC, but you're hurting all the colleges. You know, and that's the bigger picture, not, you know, we're not saying, no, just give us the money and not the other colleges.
You mean like most lobbyists?
Yeah. Okay, so I think the path forward, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Dave, I think implicitly we cover everybody in the, you know, in the state community colleges by going up to represent ourselves as a community college. But I think it's important that we say where we're from, and as Simon suggested, speak from specific case studies. And so, I mean, our experience, and speak passionately, clearly, as Dr. Scott advised. His advice was very clear and concise, and I think that's the way we should approach it. The FA and other groups represent general, you know, interests of community colleges, but we can go up and speak, and it will be part of that, but it will be specific as well.
I'd like to add this particular committee also. I was reading in the LA Times that there is a willingness in the public to pass the tax increase. It's the last poll I saw a couple days ago. We need to build on that willingness out there in the public by advocating very strongly for that very important ballot measure this coming fall.
Absolutely.
It's important to recognize that there are indeed statewide groups trying to organize folks throughout the state. So, for example, the statewide academic senate is working on a statewide basis to get folks throughout California advocating on behalf of their particular colleges and for community colleges in general. So it's important that we keep in mind that we're part of a larger group, and we can connect with these different faculty groups, classified groups, and so on through our networks.
Okay, so I think we have a path forward here, and I think that basically is I'll ask the shared governance representatives, so in this case Ed and Gary and maybe Crystal representing the Management Association, to get, and also you, Joel, and you realize the confidentials may want in on this too, right? Right. Exactly. So we'll ask each one of those folks to appoint no more than 3, but 2 is a nice round number. 2, if you feel that will work for you. Get that information, work in concert with the collective bargaining units, if you would please, and then get your recommendations to Beverly and Beverly, and then once we have the group, we'll take the responsibility of calling the first meeting and getting everybody together and get started, and of course the associated students as well, as you guys do your thing. Does that make sense? Does that get us where we need to be? Okay, great. Then I think, with your permission, I'll move the agenda. And the next item on the agenda, which I think was a request of Simon and the students, was a shared governance review and discussion.
If I could, actually, my name is Chris Fennessy. I'm the Vice President for Academic Affairs. Today I'm sitting in for Alex. I didn't know I was going to be doing so. When I asked Simon to put this on the agenda, I hope to come in as public and kind of present, because I've been, as many of you probably know, very active in the shared governance process through my position. And I think that there's a lot of things that we're doing very well in certain areas on shared governance, but there's also a few problems that I've seen. And I just kind of wanted to start discussing those issues that I've seen, and more importantly, actually provide some proposals on how we can fix those problems. Because honestly, the main issue that I see is that there's a lot of things that we see I feel like there's not enough room for the all constituent groups on campus to come up with these ideas, proposals, innovative solutions to all the issues that are going on campus. And I felt that it was my due diligence to not only bring that to the attention, but actually, put my money where my mouth is and bring proposals myself. I do want to make clear that this is something that I have personally done. These proposals have not been approved by the associate students. This is coming from me, but I do think that I've had enough experience with shared governance, and I hope that probably you will have had similar experiences. So I'll just really quickly go through, if that's okay, some of the insights that I have on the shared governance process right now. One of the main issues, I think, is communication. Instead of us running to different constituent groups running to catch up with shared governance and be involved in issues, shared governance should really be running to get us and get our peers involved. And I think that issues need to be brought to our attention formally, and instead of going necessarily, a lot of times, unfortunately, at least in the student's perspective, we've heard things sometimes through the grapevine, instead of actually really being presented with a person. Another issue is something that I don't want to necessarily call it this, but the idea that sometimes committees are asked to almost rubber stamp different proposals. Problems or issues that are being brought to the committee's attentions are being brought with such urgency that different constituent groups don't really have the ability to bring their own proposals to the board, to the floor. And so sometimes even the solution that is proposed, perhaps one solution that's proposed, may not be one that is really supported, but is begrudgingly passed because of that urgency. And then the final couple of issues, I think, are one, a lack of, I think, universal understanding of parliamentary procedure and Brown Act. I think there are some who understand it more than others, and sometimes that makes people either less comfortable, or others could use it to actually try to, move things in the direction that they specifically want, and others don't have the recourse to understand exactly how they can. And really just a lack of empowerment to committee members, to us, to those who are sitting here as representatives. Sometimes we're not aware of the powers and responsibilities of the committees that we're sitting on, exactly what those committees have the authority to do. And I think even more often, people aren't as comfortable with the authority that they have as a person. So, for example, asking to set the agenda, or to add things to the agenda, asking to, or being able to create motions, and really move the actual motions of anybody in the way that they see fit. And I feel like I've seen that there's a lot of people saying that what they wish they could happen, and not necessarily feeling empowered with the ability to make that happen, the way that they should have that happen. So those are my issues, and I have proposals to help with each of them. In regards to communication, I feel like issues should be formally presented to each constituent body, and shouldn't necessarily, and emails basically aren't enough, especially emails that aren't necessarily confirmed or don't have a response to them. I know the associate students have emails that we've received but have either gone to spam box or whatever happened. And so even though people feel that they've discussed with us, we haven't necessarily done it. And so more of a formalized process. Thank you very much, Vice President Miller, for coming in today and giving us that report. I think that kind of thing is exactly the kind of thing that would really strengthen the ability for people to really engage. And then I have the possibility of having, instead of, obviously we want to post our agendas and everything like that, but for the public, perhaps just a bulletin of the different topics that are being discussed. Policy on enrollment management has been discussed on enrollment management. Whatever the different ideas are, have just a really basic one page of, if you have a question on this or an opinion on this issue, this is what this committee is talking about and this is in regards to the rubber stamping, quote unquote, to send out all agendas very well in advance, and as soon as anyone says, okay, we need to make a decision on this at this date, immediately let everyone know on that committee that we're expecting a decision to be made, or we want a decision to be made on this. And so this is what the problems are, even just through an email or through whatever memo that can be sent, to make sure that they have enough ample time to come up with their own proposals, so that I don't know if this would be exactly the best, but the students could come with a proposal, and the faculty come with a proposal, and the management can come with a proposal, and the class rep come with a proposal, and everyone has their own proposals, and then they work together to see one that works for everyone. Instead of sometimes I feel like only one body comes with a proposal right now, and that's not exactly adequate. And then in regards to empowering members, every representative should take it upon themselves to have at least a cursory knowledge of Parliament Procedure and Brown Act. ASPCC would be happy to provide those workshops as we've done in the past. I know Simon has helped us in AS really understand Brown Act, and it's really helped us become, I think, more beneficial members of the shared governance process. And then just making very clear the exact powers and responsibilities of not only people on committees, but committees as a whole. And so those are my ideas on how to really strengthen the shared governance process here on campus.
Okay, comments, reactions, thoughts?
I think he makes a very good point, but I think our first step in this should be to review policy 2000 on shared governance and bring it to this committee. If we're going to make the changes that he's saying, they should probably go into that policy and procedure. So maybe that would be a place for us to start. It's probably time to review that policy and procedure.
Yeah, that's an excellent thought. It's a great idea. Dave?
Maybe we could have Simon give us something on Brown Act meeting.
Ooh, like a Brown Act check-in, like an ethics check-in and a Brown Act check-in.
Well, I absolutely, why not?
Okay, I think that's a good idea. Okay.
And actually, one of the examples that shared governance worked on so far that I've been a part of is planning and priorities. Obviously, the initial way that things happened at the beginning of the semester were obviously rocky. But then what happened was this shared governance committee was said, okay, here's a question, how do you solve it? There wasn't a plan, there wasn't any material even, and the committees, even though it took a while, but it is a massive change, went out and did their own research, and I think that it's made a lot of people felt not only empowered, but it's come to a really good conclusion so far. And so I would say that the planning priorities for the realignment model that we followed so far, it would be good to apply that elsewhere.
I would also say that a marked improvement in planning priorities in enrollment management and in BRAC as well, the Budget Resources and Allocation Committee. I think that is a much more open and there's a lot of opportunity for discussion, and it's longer term, and it started earlier, and that I think gets to some of the points that Chris was making. So yeah, so those three, and then the other standing committees, some of which are up and going. Al chairs sustainability. I know the facilities committee is up and going. There's others that are up and going, and perhaps what we need to do is more proactively ask those standing committees to report out. So I think that might be something that Beverly and I can maybe work on. We can maybe put those committees in a rotation. So right off the bat, maybe we'll do that. That's a thought, I guess. Further comments or thoughts? Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I thank you again for hearing my ideas, and thank you, Simon, because that's absolutely true. There are some things on campus that are really going very well as regards. And I think the alignment process right now is the best example of exactly how it can go well, and that we have the capacity and we want to. Everyone on campus wants to make it go well, and it's not that anyone's purposely making shared governance go incorrectly. It's just that things can always need improvement, things always need readjustments, and that's why I want to bring this to the table.
Thank you. If the group agrees, as the chair, I'd like to convene a working group of the College Council to review Policy 2000. And I'll get with the shared governance groups and the Office of Institutional Effectiveness and Enrollment Management, and yours truly will work to support the work of that committee, and we'll bring something back over a reasonable period of time for this group to begin to consider. Is that acceptable, Bill? Okay. And it's really a good idea because Crystal thought of it. So now when I ask her to help me with it, she can't say no. Very good. Well, thank you. Okay, so I think we'll move the agenda to item 11, which is the academic calendar options. And I believe this is another one that the students have requested, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I also requested this item. I want to start by noting the fact that I completely understand the fact that the idea of the post-semester calendar by the administration in regards to collective bargaining, it is a collective bargaining issue. It is a working issue, and that's something that absolutely needs to be taken into account. That decision should be taken. It should be done contractually. However, especially as a student representative, I feel like it was inappropriate for there to be no college-wide discussion on the merits of any system. And before even putting the students' opinion on the table, I know that this body is supposed to make recommendations to the president, makes recommendations to the district. And so, though we have no deciding power on this, if we took action, or this body took action to make a recommendation, that recommendation is a representation of the college as a whole, and that means that the college has had that discussion. And I felt that it was inappropriate, especially for students who really have no collective bargaining rights at all on this campus, to not really be involved in the discussion at all, and really just for there not to be a discussion outside of the collective bargaining. And I understand that. And again, this is it's all recommendations. It can't be anything that's decisive. I do want to note, because I've spoken with Dr. Bell and Vice President Miller as well briefly, and I understand that because we have people on either side, both the district with our administration and the faculty association present here, we have to be careful with any discussion that we have to make sure that there is no collective bargaining going on in this discussion. But that doesn't, I don't think, mean that we cannot have any discussion as a actual college. And as much as I enjoy going and visiting offices of all those in the faculty and in administration and all that, and really having one-on-one discourse, I really think it'd be more appropriate to have a discussion here.
I saw Simon, and then I'll go Chris.
I'd just like to add on to that. As Chris mentioned, this is a collective bargaining issue, and so it has to be dealt with at the bargaining table. However, it is more than a bargaining issue, because the calendar is what we have to operate under. The semester structure is what we have to operate on when we take our classes. It is what the classified staff has to work under. The calendar gets set according to the contract, and so before we get to a negotiation stage, I think that the associated students feel it should have been brought to us before it went to negotiation, and in fact it should have been brought to college council before negotiation, because it is beyond just a collective bargaining issue as far as we are concerned. Crystal?
I thought there was a calendar committee that met and discussed these issues, and it had shared governance representation. Am I mistaken in that?
No, let's see. It was for
Just well, just for clarity, and then Chris has to say, there is indeed a calendar committee. It is co-chaired by Krista and by Dr. Bell, and there are representatives on that committee from the faculty, from classified, from the students, and so on. And that committee functions within the scope of the larger collective bargaining decision. This issue is indeed, from our perspective, from the perspective of the Academic Senate, a collective bargaining issue between the administration and the faculty association. So we're sort of going to leave it at that. But there is indeed a calendar committee that has input from these various constituency groups, and from that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
But just to clarify, the calendar committee, the purview of the calendar committee is to set the dates, not to make decisions about trimesters and semesters. All we do is set the dates for the calendar. And I'd just like to clarify also about collective bargaining. Just from a time standpoint, we've not gone to the table to collectively bargain about the calendar. And your concerns are our concerns.
And I will also say very briefly that the calendar committee is a standing committee of the College Council. So certainly we would invite the co-chairs of the calendar committee to report out. And so perhaps at the next meeting we can ask the two co-chairs to do that, and we can have discussion that way. We can have discussion today. Without speaking specifically to what Chris or Simon said, certainly it's in the purview of this group to discuss anything that is of significant interest to the college, and we can certainly do that. And I think we would do that in this particular case under the a discussion of the calendar as co-chaired by the two co-chairs.
Yeah, you know, I'm not really a member of this committee. I'm just a substitute today, but I would be happy to report as calendar committee co-chair anytime. We're having our next meeting tomorrow, actually, so people are invited to come.
So I think our next meeting is April 25th, is that what this is? Yeah, so at the April 25th meeting, we'll definitely agendize the academic calendar and then have a discussion at that point. Not to stop any discussion right now if anybody wants to further talk about the issue. Yes, sir.
Well, I'd just like to add for the next agenda, if we could also just have an item that examines the charge of the calendar committee, and just to ensure that it really encompasses what I think we now want it to encompass.
Very good. We'll bring that document. We'll send it out as one of the attachments.
Fantastic. And just to follow up, the Academic Senate, you have a collective bargaining group. We don't. This is our only venue to collectively bargain, which we try to do on a regular basis. Given that the calendar committee, the calendar that was presented in the board packet last month was a creation of the 2010-11 calendar committee, which had Jamie Hammond, and I can't remember the second student. Was it just Jamie Hammond? Oh, it was just one student at the time. Now we've had it as an actual recommendation, but it was simply a what if the sky was green kind of scenario. So the calendar committee hasn't actually taken any action to recommend anything on what the structure should look like, and it didn't last year. It certainly hasn't come before the shared governance group this year, and the only reason it's different is because we aren't here as long as you guys are. But our lifespans were like fruit flies. So on that, we would like to bring it back to.
We spoke it's a little longer than fruit flies.
A little bit. It doesn't feel like it sometimes. But so we would definitely like it back, and to the specific recommendation that was presented at the, or the specific calendar that was presented in the board packet, we've taken a pretty firm stance against it because of the issues of transferability of classes and what would be this summer session and the necessity of having a short-term inter-session winter period, which the students have predominantly, overwhelmingly, and continuously shown almost universal support. And so on that basis, we have to say that it was not a proposal that we support.
Yes, Martha.
Just clarification, so tomorrow at what time?
12 o'clock.
And where?
C217.
And by the way, let the minutes reflect and the video reflect that Martha Bonilla joined us as well. Thank you. Dave.
Yeah, when I was on calendar committee before, all we did was set, when the holidays were going to occur, whether we were going to have flex days or classified days. The calendar itself was set. There's so many, so many teaching days and so forth. We have nothing to say whether there's one semester or 10 semesters. If I'm not mistaken.
I think that's pretty much accurate.
Yeah, but I think this discussion reflects the fact that faculty and students are very concerned about this, just the discourse about changes to the calendar. And since all we have is a calendar committee, they often come to me with these questions and with these concerns. And that is not what this calendar committee is actually charged to discuss. So we do need to have this discussion in a much more open forum.
I agree. Thank you. Alice.
Well, that was going to be my next question as to, you said the dates, but who decides, is there two summer sessions or a winter session, or how is that decided?
Well, these are what's known as working condition items. So right now, the discussion, the district is bringing forth a proposal, and it will go to the negotiation table between the Faculty Association of Pasadena City College and the district, and we'll see what happens. Anybody else on this topic? Okay. We have, I'd like to get, I noticed a few more members of the public joined us, and if anybody would like, if it's okay with the group, I'd like to give others an opportunity to speak. If anybody in our massive audience of 4 would like to speak, I'd like to give that opportunity if anybody would like to speak.
Sure, I can speak.
Please come up to the podium, Melissa, please. Thank you.
I didn't prepare anything, but the topic of the calendar committee was really interesting because a lot of faculty at least in my division, are upset by the fact that not very many people, not very many faculty were polled about a week between spring and summer. And I think the number was 141 faculty were polled, and over 3,000 students were polled, and about 300 staff were polled. But only faculty that were teaching in the summer had been polled, and there's over 900 faculty teaching that might have an opinion about the topic of having a week's break between the spring and the summer.
I'm sorry, can you identify yourself?
Sorry, my name is Melissa Michelson, and I teach in the Languages Division. So that's kind of been on our tongues in the last couple of days.
Good to see you walking without a crutch.
Yeah, thank you. Or my ACL. And so I think that's the topic du jour. So I thought I'd share that with you, and it's timely because that was your topic. So.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Simon?
Just a question, Melissa. Would you actually like to see? Are you asking for a new poll, or repeat of the poll with new faculty?
I think it would be more representative, just because students were polled. Students that had attended summer were polled. Students that didn't attend summer were polled, but not faculty that taught in the summer and didn't attend summer. Just specifically faculty that taught summer were polled, and we all know that numbers of faculty is very small number. And then in the end, I think only 63 faculty actually voted. So.
Does Crystal have anything to add to that, since it's reported from that office that it would be coming?
Actually, I thought the process they went through was fine. I understood the committee's recommendation that we just pull faculty who taught in the summer. I thought that was reasonable. We went back and forth about whether to pull students who had taken summer school and those who had not. We decided to do a representative sample of everyone, and I really felt they made a good decision because they felt the faculty who taught would have the most expertise on whether or not the week was necessary.
I think, I saw Ed and then I'll go to Chris.
I'm surprised hearing about this poll. I was never polled.
Right, a lot of us weren't polled.
Okay, so this was a poll that went out only to faculty who taught during the summer last year?
Yeah, one particular summer. It was the first year we'd actually had the 1 week break. We've never had it before. So we just pulled the faculty who taught last summer and asked them how they felt about it.
And this is a question about the value of the week off in between the spring and summer, is that correct?
That's it.
Okay. And that was it 2 years ago, Paul, or was it this past summer?
They did the poll.
Yeah.
I just did the poll in January and February.
Of this? Okay, I was polled.
I just wanted to add, and correct me if I'm wrong, Crystal, but the results really fell to the students that were polled. The results that we got back from faculty and staff were balanced between pro and con, and the real decisive factor was the students who were polled.
The faculty they were split, you're correct. It was about 51-47, something like that, against the week. But the students were highly in favor of it, as were the classified and the managers were highly in favor of it.
Dave?
Are you saying in favor of the week?
Of maintaining the week break.
Right, and then instead of having the 3 weeks, I think you're saying you want 4 weeks back, vacation.
A lot of us, at least in my division, would like that. And I also informally asked my students this week in my level 1 class, and I presented it on the board. I showed them the old calendar. I showed them the new possible calendar, and it was split, I think. But I was also wondering about if students fully understood the survey questions, because I think the question was something like, do you like the downtime, or would you like a week of downtime between? Sounds really good, but I'm not sure if they know that means they'll be studying all the way until pretty much Christmas, December 23rd, finals last day. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a student, so I can't say what students would want and not want, but some of my colleagues were also concerned about the way it was questioned.
Well, I could answer that because the terminology downtime was actually requested by the academic calendar committee. I had used different wording, and they specifically wanted it worded as downtime because they felt for managers and staff, it was not a break. It was just downtime.
I saw Chris, then I saw Martin.
Yeah, if I could, because I do sit on the calendar committee, and when I looked through the document that Chris provided, that I was actually pretty impressed by the questions and by how the student representation was broken down. It was broken down into students who did take summer and their answers to questions, and students who did not take summer and their answers to questions, and both were overwhelmingly, over I think 85% in favor of the break. And just to report to this body the actual the vote, I believe it was all in favor except for one faculty who voted, I believe, against because of the split between the faculty. But all other members present, students, classified, everyone was in favor of the week break.
I heard there was some abstaining, some faculty that abstained.
So that may have been, I think that there was of the two faculty I believe on the committee, or five, that one voted in favor and one abstained, I think it may have been.
Martha?
Perhaps there was two who were present.
Well, I'm thinking maybe what might be requested here is another poll, and rather than polling just people who taught in the summer, that summer, but poll anybody who could potentially teach in the summer, because, you know, that would be certainly true. Simply because I didn't teach that summer doesn't mean that I couldn't potentially teach in the summer in the future.
So I think if I may, Krista, to sort of bounce that back to your committee to
yeah, I'll definitely bring it back to the committee, but I do think that it's an open meeting and that anyone can come to the calendar committee meeting, and the purpose of the committee is to work these issues out, and that's what we have been doing. But we are also under a deadline, and we are also a Brown Act committee, so we will not be able to agendize that particular issue, and our next meeting will be a month from tomorrow. So I'm not sure that we can get right on that second poll in time to get our calendar up to Sacramento.
Thank you, Melissa.
One more thing is
Okay.
I just happened upon getting the results. So it was a lot of faculty were also concerned that, hey, when were they planning to tell us the results of the poll? So that was another thing that just, I talked to somebody today in my area.
And that speaks to Chris's communication issue. Very good. Thank you again. Okay, so I think that's the end of that conversation for now. So we'll move the agenda to item 12, Vice President's report. We have one Vice President with us today. So Dr. Lastimado, is there anything you'd like to share with the Council today?
I should be done at 12 o'clock. Well, thank you for having me. I just want to talk about 4 items that I think 3 of them may have come across, not your desk, but where you're sitting, perhaps, or wherever you're sitting in the College Council. But one of the committees that we started back in September is the Human Resources Advisory Committee, and that committee is a standing committee for human resources. My label for that committee is the eyes and ears for the VP for HR. They're the ones. They're members of the constituent groups. I think one of you are on it. I know Gary's on it, but we have members from the classified staff, faculty. We have 2 faculty, 3 classified staff, and confidentials, and the managers on there. And basically, this committee is to advise the VP for HR as what's going well, what's not going well. We started this back in September, and the first task I've asked them to do is to look at the hiring policies for the constituent groups. We have a hiring policy for managers, we have a hiring policy for faculty, classified staff, / confidentials, I believe. And currently, right now, I know the constituent group are close in having this hiring policy procedure revised. Now, I'm not sure, because although I've been here for 7 months, College Council is different than every place I've been. I'm not sure if this policy procedure would come across the College Council. But if it does, we'll hopefully see it before the calendar year is over. The other committee that I started back in September, which I understand is the first campus-wide committee, is the campus-wide diversity committee. Now I know Simon and Chris had expressed interest, and maybe I didn't invite you hard enough. But I think at the last academic senate meeting, I indicated we had on March 26th, which was yesterday. But what I'm going to do is, if you can email me, because I don't have your email address, but I think I gave you my card. If you don't have it, I can give it to you again. If you email me, and I'll put you on the campus-wide diversity committee email listing. I know some of you are on it. I know Joanne too. She's on it, and Gary and Deborah Cantonero is on it, and there's some faculty, several faculty is on it also. And basically, this campus-wide diversity committee, I believe the policy procedures that they will be working on in the very, very near future, I believe will come to the College Council for your review and approval, I assume. But the diversity committee is a committee that is to hopefully satisfy soon Action 11 of the Educational Master Plan. The comprehensive, let's go, I'll get to that later. So this committee meets about once every month, and yesterday we had our meeting and we talked about our campus-wide vision statement and the diversity hiring process. And we understand that's a very sensitive issue, so I assure we're navigating that very, very carefully. The third item is the comprehensive professional development program. This program is to satisfy Action 4 of the Educational Master Plan. This committee started off with 30-something individuals, 30-plus individuals campus-wide, and then this group said we wanted an oversight committee to sort of manage this whole process. And currently we have 12 individuals, which includes the vice president for instructions and the members of all the constituent groups. We have a draft policy and procedure. We have a draft infrastructure as to how the comprehensive professional development program will be coordinated, which will coordinate all training on campus. If all the details are worked out and it comes to fruition, we hope to bring this to the board, hopefully in June, for approval of the policy. I don't know if the policy procedure needs to come to College Council, like Vice President Miller, so we need to kind of advise him if it does or not. I know the Academic Senate will be looking at the draft policy procedure. I think it's scheduled for April 30th. And we're hoping that it'll get to you by then. Okay. Last but not least is I've been here for 7 months in human resources, and I understand that there's a lot of mystery as to what human resources does. There's a lot of mystery as to how it relates to the employees and the employees' career here in the district. So one of the things that my staff and I have talked about last week was to come up with a periodic HR lunch bag. And right now we're trying to come up with the subjects for the lunch bag. We would invite anyone to bring your own lunch, and bring mine too, but have a lunch bag session where we'll talk about specific subjects of HR that impacts employees. So that what we're trying to do is to make sure that for example, because on hiring processes or unemployment claims or workers' compensation, reclassification of credentials as relates to faculty, those kind of things. What is the process? Or what are the things that you are required to do as an employee so that we can help you better? And what is that HR needs to do so we get to do what you need us to do for you? So we want to take the mission out of those things. And so we're hoping that right now we're planning the subjects, and we're hopefully going to start announcing our first HR launch bag pretty soon. And last but not least, I said that before, right? But here's another last but not least. We have, if you go to the PCC website, there is a picture that says 100% transparency. If you click on that, you will see what we call, I think, the VP banners. Each vice president and the general counsel has a page where we announce news. I recommend that you look at that. In fact, today I just put another announcement or news on the Vice President of Human Resources website or web banner, and it talked about the new state teachers retirement rule that's going to become effective July 1, 2012. And basically just give you a short preview and not give you everything, kind of tease you to get on that thing. If you are a STIRS retiree working for any community college, and if you're making over $31,020 as a STIRS retiree working for a community college or any public agency, that agency is required to report you to STIRS, and STIRS will adjust retirement pay. So it'll impact it. So if you are a STIRS retiree, or if you know anybody that's a STIRS retiree here on campus, it's on the VP HR page where you can read the whole news. What I'm going to also do is that we're currently researching who are the PCC employees that are STIRS retirees. We have two. We have two of them that I've already identified, two administrators. And I've talked to them personally. But if you're one of them, I will send you a personal letter letting you know what the rule is going to be, and then give you an invitation to meet with me and my HR benefit technician and have a one-on-one session, the question and answer Q&A. So that's my report, and I've done it for 5 o'clock. So if there are any questions that I can answer. She was first.
This is just a question based on the 2 green sheets that came out yesterday for interim assignments. And there were a lot of questions, why weren't they just posted as regular positions? And are they going to be interim along with regular postings, or is it one of those indefinite interim assignments?
Are you talking about the interim director positions and interim fiscal director positions?
Correct.
Well, first of all, I'll give you the big picture that kind of narrowed it down. The education code allows for interim, but generally interims do not exceed for more than 1 year. So eventually the pushing item goes away, or it's reposted. I think the term we use here is flow, flew, or fly, but it's reposted either for a permanent position. Now, I'm not understanding what you just said.
I think I can actually respond to that if you'd like, Ben. Okay. We had a lot of discussion about this at the executive committee, and it is definitely the preference of the president and the college in general now to fly permanent positions. However, because of the budget situation that we're in right now, it was decided that for those 2 positions, at least for a year, we would attempt to fill from within and then backfill those candidates to any great extent, because these are they're level 1 management positions and they're expensive. But there was a great deal of discussion. There were other positions that were approved that were in that discussion, and those all the other ones that are going to fly as permanent.
When will we see a realignment, big picture?
Realignment, big picture.
When will we see if these will be positions, or if they are phasing out and calling other people other things? Or do you see what I'm saying? There are interim positions, but we don't see how it fits into the big picture of realignment.
Well, then on the top of the realignment, as we mentioned earlier, the Planning and Priorities Committee continues to talk about that, and that impacts the, if you will, the academic side of the house. These 2 positions are on the administrative services side of the house.
Correct.
And I don't know the answer to your question in terms of Vice President Van Pelt and what he is planning or thinking about right now. Right now, he is basically saying that he needs to fill these 2 senior level manager positions, and he put forth a request to do so. And after a lot of thorough discussion, it was decided by the president and the other members of the executive team to allow those as interim flies right now. We use the term fly.
I remember 20 years in public higher ed, not heard the word flow, flew, so if I say post, I meant to say fly, flow, flew, flow, whatever. But to kind of close out this interim thing, it's not just a budget issue. The state allows interims, but sometimes, like for myself, I don't have an executive assistant or an assistant. I'm the secretary. So if I miss a meeting, it's my fault because I'm running my own company. If I appear at a meeting, I'm not supposed to be there, I made a mistake because I am running my own company. But I think it's because administration have an opportunity to revisit a position. We may be asking asking the question, is this the same job description we want to have? That's been here since 1995, 1992, 1975. And sometimes we can't answer that question within an hour, within a month, within a day, whatever the case may be. Sometimes because we run 1,000 miles an hour right now, we may need some time, or organization need time to revisit positions. So interims is an avenue that gives the administration time or management time to relook and test a position. So during an interim position, you can test the position with new things to see if when you do make it a permanent, you want to add these new things that you were taxed at a position that during the interim period. Does that make sense? So that's what the education code, or that's what one of the reasons, many reasons, why the education code allows interim positions. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, David.
Well, I have a question for you, but another one for, I want to find out about the budget committee. Is that going to start back up?
The what committee?
Budget,
the health
benefits committee.
The benefits committee is going to start up. When I do not know. You know, like I said, the last time at the last college council meeting, I think I reported, we're trying to collect health benefits data. Health benefits data, not just from Kenyon, but from some other places. I've kind of given an idea. I looked at CalPERS. CalPERS provide a benefits program. And just kind of give you a quick preview, just a glance. It's not a decision, just my just quick glance at it. You know, I don't know if CalPERS has a better package than what we currently have. So I'm looking also at other options, like if we go directly to the vendor, rather than use a third-party administrator, TPA, would that be least expensive, but improve our benefits package? So there's a lot of things that we're doing research on right now, and I don't know if I don't know how valuable or productive in resurrecting the benefits committee right now, but we don't have anything really to report yet. So yes, we're going to resurrect the benefits committee. I don't know when that thing.
What I don't want to see is, like the gentleman was saying, is rubber stamping something that's coming in. I'd rather be part of the in the initial work of it than be at the end.
Well, absolutely.
The other question I had, you talk about interns. You're saying that you want to go from within those environments. We can even have anyone on campus that would even qualify for those.
Oh, I'm sorry, which requirement?
The facilities director and accounting director. So you want to fill them from inside?
Well, that's the intent. So the intent is to fly them internally, and if in fact after the hiring practice or process it's determined that we don't have the internal expertise to handle the jobs, and obviously we go off for another search. Okay, any other questions for the Vice President Lascamato?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. I also want to put in a plug for the Educational Services banner under 100% transparency. I'm also trying to post at least once a week, either myself or someone on the Ed Services team, to kind of report out things that are happening. So it is a good way. That's how we're trying to work on communication a little bit, and it is a good way to do that. The other thing is, I'd like the permission of the body. I'd like to agendize the next meeting. The Student Success Task Force has 22 recommendations that it's put forth through the Board of Governors. Recently, we provided a report at the request of Dr. Rocha and the board as to how PCC is stacking up to those recommendations. So we did that, and I'd like the opportunity to present that at the next College Council meeting if you would so allow me to do so. Okay, so we'll do that. And then one other quick thing, it's kind of a funny thing, but it's true. At Dean's meeting this morning, Darrell Taylor presented a thing, because he started out his expressions, which is the way that Dr. Bell starts his meetings. It's a tradition that Dr. Jacobs started. They rotate through and someone expresses something they want to say. So this morning, Darrell got a picture of Mark Twain, and at the top he wrote, "PCC is going to be all right." And then it's a quote from Mark Twain, which is, "I have been through some terrible things in my life, some of which actually happened." So, the word there is that sometimes we all sort of think things through more sometimes than perhaps we have to, and that's how we sort of end up. But I do think that the motto PCC is going to be all right is probably true. It's been here almost 90 years. We'll probably be here another 90 after us, right? So we'll get through all of this. Are there any announcements that anybody at the table would like to make? Allison,
I just wanted to point something out. Over the past year, I've watched Ed Martinez in Academic Senate. I thought he's displayed a tremendous amount of class. And I know there's an election coming up. But I've really been impressed with how he's conducted the Academic Senate. And I just wanted to publicly make him aware of that. people have recognized the elegance that you've shown in what you've done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. Going around the table, Krista, anything else? Deborah, Gary, Julio, Dave, Alice, Ed, Dustin, Martha, Coleman? Means you're good at peace, right? Okay. Crystal?
Peace.
Chris, from John?
Actually, yeah.
Chris.
Chris. On April 10th, the Associate Students are going to be hosting an event with John Perkins, the economic hitman, who'll be hosting the social science division. Any and all people who be here will be in the Crepin Lounge here at 7 o'clock on April 10th. It's going to be a really, really amazing event.
Thank you. John? Simon and Joanne.
Just have to plug the AIS vendor demonstrations again. They're going on, they'll end Monday with this first group, then a week off, then back for another week with another group of vendors, then a week off, and then the final week with the third vendor demonstrations. We have posters around our website with ITS, and everyone is welcome. The students, community, all feedback is appreciated.
Very, very impressive. So, thank you. All right, so our next meeting is April 25th, and it'll be back at 2:30 p.m. start time. I appreciate everybody's indulgence this time. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, so Simon and Dave, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Thank you all very much.